Hello, grade 7. This is Mrs. Lopez. We are starting our second module, the rational numbers. And today we are working on the first lesson, introductory lesson, about opposite quantities combined to make zero. What does it mean? Okay, so first of all, let's review positive and negative numbers. Positive and negative numbers can be very different, but they have something in common. That's why you see this Venn diagram here. Let's talk about negative numbers first. What do we know about negative numbers? Well, first, if we look at the number line, and here I have the number line, the negative numbers will be to the left of 0. So we can write down left of 0. Left of 0. If I look at the vertical number line, imagine thermometer, positive numbers will be above 0, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And negative numbers will be below 0. -1, -2, -3, -4, right? So all the negative numbers are below 0. We can write down below 0. Below 0, you can also see in a term like below the sea level. So let's write that down as well, below sea level. It can also mean decrease, fall in like a temperature, fall, O for debt. All of these words will mean negative numbers. We also know that negative numbers are opposites of positive numbers. So they're opposite of positive numbers. Okay. What about positive numbers? Everything that is opposite from negative, right? So they will be to the right on the number line or above the 0. So right of 0 or above 0. It'll be, it can mean increase, rise, above sea level, gain. Okay. We can write here loss as well in the negative. Okay. And they're as well opposite of negative numbers. Okay. So then what is same about positive and negative numbers? Well, the number line. They're all on the same number line, right? So same number line. Same number line. And there is one more that we will add just a little bit later on. Okay, so let's talk about how we use counting up and down on the number line. Use the number line to practice counting up and counting down. Counting up, starting at 0, corresponds to positive numbers. If I count up, I count to the right. So positive numbers is when I count up on the number line. Therefore, counting down, starting at 0, will correspond to negative numbers. And when I go down on the number line, I'll go to the left. It's like on the vertical number line. Going up will represent going up towards the positive numbers. Going down, the temperature will be falling, right? So that will be negative numbers. Okay, where do you begin when locating a number on the number line? You will always begin at 0. You will always start at 0 no matter what. What do you call the distance between a number and 0 on the number line? So for example, if I have, let's say, number 4 on the number line, what will be the distance from 0 to 4? Or if I choose -4, what will be the distance from 0 to -4? What is it called? That is called absolute value. Absolute value is the distance between the 0 and the number on the number line. Absolute value. Okay. Let's take a look at these two absolute values. What is the distance between 0 and 4 on the number line? That is 4, because 4 is positioned 4 units to the right of the 0. What is the absolute value of -4? Or what is the distance of -4 between -4 and 0 on the number line? It is also 4, saying that -4 is 4 units away from the 0 to the left. So what can we say about the same thing between positive and negative numbers? They have the same absolute value. Absolute value of 4 is 4. Absolute value of -4 is also 4. So same absolute value we can add to our Venn diagram. Same absolute value. Same absolute value. Okay. What is the relationship between 7 and -7? What is their relationship? Well, they're opposites. They're opposites. We can also say that they have the same absolute value, just what we found out. I'm not gonna write that. That's enough for us to know that 7 and -7 are absolute. They're opposites. Okay, let's move on and see how we can add some numbers on the number line. Okay, it says using integer card game. In class, we are going to learn how to play integer cards. What you need to know about integers are positive and negative numbers. You may or may not have heard this word before, integers. Integers are whole numbers and their opposites. So if you want to add a little note here, integer is a whole number or its opposite. Integer is a whole number or its opposite. So integer can be -5, it can be 5, it can be 8, it can be -10, it can be 100, it can be -88. And so all of these counting numbers, including 0, which is whole numbers, and their opposites are integers. Okay? So how do we add on the number line integers? So let's start with 5. Our first card here is 5. How do I locate 5 on the number line? I always start at 0. So I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to go 5 units to the right to find the 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, my arrow stopped here and I am on number 5. Now I need to add -5 to this number. Since I'm adding to the 5, now I'm starting my second step from the 5. So I started the 5 and I go 5 units, but now since this is a negative integer, I'm going to go to the left. So I'm starting at 5 and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the left. Now I stopped at 0. What do you notice about these two arrows? They're the same length, aren't they? And when I go 5 and I add -5, I end up at where I started. I end up at 0. Okay, now let's take a look at adding -4 to where I ended last. So I ended last at 0 and I'm going to add -4. Since this is a negative integer, I'm going to go to the left 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4. I ended up at -4. Okay, and now I'm adding 8 to this number. So again, I'm starting at where I left. I left at -4, and I'm going to start by counting 8 units. Since 8 is a positive integer, I'm going to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I stopped at 4. 4 is my final answer to this question. So if I were to add 5 and -5 and -4 and 8, I would end up at 4. What is the final position on the number line? 4. What card or combination of cards would you need to get back to 0? So let's see, we are at 4 right now, and I need to be at 0. What can I add to 4 to come back to 0? The easiest number that you can pick is -4, because -4 and 4 are opposites, right? So if I add -4 to the 4, I would go 4 units to the left. Since -4 is a negative number or a negative integer, I will go to the left 4 units and I would end up at 0. Okay, what else can I add to 4? If I choose a combination of cards, let's say -2 and -2 again. So -2 will bring me to the 2, right? 1, 2 to the left. And I will need to have 2 more negative numbers, 1, 2, to get back to the 0. So -2 and -2. Can I have -3 and -1? Absolutely. -3, I will go 3 units to the left, and then I will add -1 more to get to 0. So -3 and -1. Can it be a 1 positive, 1 negative? Let's take a look. If I say +1, I would go from 4 to 5. Because it's positive, I would go to the right. But then to go to 0, I would have to pick -5, right? So +1 and -5 will give me 0. +1 and -5. I can also pick one negative and one positive. One negative could be -6. So if I go from 4, I'll go 6 units to the left and I will end up at -2. So I will need to pick 2 to the opposite direction, to the positive direction, to end up at 0. So it can be -6 and 2. The possibilities here are endless. I can count on and on and on and on, and all of these numbers will be right. They will be correct because we have infinite number of numbers, right? And if I add positive number, I will just need to end up adding another negative number, which will have the same absolute value. That is the number on the number line. Okay. So let's take a look at additive inverse. What is the additive inverse? Additive inverse is the same word for opposite. Opposite. Additive comes from the word add, right? So we're adding. Inverse. Inverse is the opposite. Okay, so adding the opposite number. Okay, so use this number line to answer each of the following questions. How far is 7 from 0 and in what direction? So from 0, we are looking at 7. 7 is 7 units to the right of the 0. So 7 units to the right. What is the opposite of 7? The opposite of 7 is going to be -7, just like we learned in our first example. So negative 7 will be the opposite of 7. How far is negative 7 from 0 and in which direction? Negative 7 from 0 is 7 units to the left. So 7 units to the left. Okay. Next question. Explain how would you use the counting on method to display the following. While playing the integer game, the first card selected is a 7 and the second card selected is a negative 7. Let's take a look at the number line first and then we will record it in writing. Okay, so here is our number line and we have two numbers, 7 and negative 7. And I need to see what their sum is going to be using counting on method. So my first step is to start at 0. Then I need to locate 7. So I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to count 7 units to the right to get there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 units to the right. I'm at 7 right now. Okay, now I need to add negative 7 to it. 7 and negative 7 right here, right? It's the second card. Negative 7, so I stopped at 7. Now I'm going to start at that 7. So start at 7 and we are going to go 7 units, but now to the left since my negative 7 is a negative number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 units to the left. Where will I stop? I will stop at 0 because 7 and negative 7 are opposites. Okay, so that's what we are going to record right now. So we are going to write start at 0. That's what I'm doing all the time. I start at 0. Start at 0. Then we are going to count 7 units to the right and stop at 7. Count 7 units to the right, stop at 7. Okay. My next step will be to start at 7. Start at 7. And we are going to count 7 units to the left. Count 7 units to the left. Therefore, we are going to stop at 0. Stop at 0. That's how we would add 7 and negative 7 on the number line. Okay, so what does this tell us about the sum of 7 and its opposite, negative 7? We just answered our question. 7 and negative 7 will equal 0. 7 plus negative 7 equals 0. And that is how I'm going to write my negative numbers. My negative numbers I'm going to write in parentheses just to separate that plus and minus sign right here. Okay, what do you notice about two arrows? When we look at the two arrows on the number line that represent 7 and negative 7, these two arrows are exactly the same length, right? So we can write they are the same length. The arrows are the same length. Okay. Do you think it would hold true for the sum of any number and its opposite, and why? Okay, so let's think about it. If I add 5 and negative 5, I would go 5 units to the left and 5 units to the right. I will end up at 0. If I add negative 10 and 10, I will go 10 units to the left and 10 units to the right. I will end up at 0. That will be true for all integers and their opposites. Okay, so yes, because their absolute values are the same. Their absolute values are the same. Okay, all right. So the last thing, or to summarize what we learned today in this lesson, is that for any number or additive inverse, for any number a, there is a number negative a, and when we add these two numbers, positive number and a negative number, it will result in 0. Same will work for adding a negative number and a positive number. That will result in 0. For example, if I had 4 plus negative 4, that will be 0. If I add negative 7 and 7, that'll be 0 as well. The additive inverse of a number is a number such as the sum of the two numbers is 0. The opposite of a number satisfies this definition. For example, the opposite of 3 is negative 3, and 3 plus negative 3 is 0. Hence, negative 3 is the additive inverse of 3. So, again, additive inverse is the opposite of a number. Okay? When I'm adding a number and its additive inverse results in 0. Okay, what do we need to remember from this lesson? Adding a positive number to a number by counting up from that number. Okay, add a negative number to a number by counting down from that number. So if I want to add positive number to any number, I would go to the right, or I would go to up on the number line. Okay, and if I add a negative number, I'll go down on the number line or to the left. An integer plus its opposite sum to 0. So if I have 6 and negative 6, that will equal 0. Okay, an integer 6 and its opposite integer is negative 6. Add them together equals 0. The opposite of a number is called the additive inverse because the two numbers' sum is 0. The opposite of a number is the additive inverse. The word additive inverse is going to be used instead of the word opposite in the future. So get used to learning that term. Okay, so when I add a number and its additive inverse, that will be 0. That is it for lesson 1. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, do your homework and I will talk to you later.